On a delightful summer afternoon in Paris, I stumbled upon this restaurant after a long walk and decided to treat myself to a bavette steak with au poivre sauce. The dish itself was served with fries, a simple salad, and of course, the steak. I sampled the fries first. They were decent, but nothing extraordinary. However, when dipped into pepper sauce, they took on a whole new level of flavor. Moving on to the star of the show, the steak. I had ordered it medium rare and it arrived perfectly cooked to my liking, tender and seasoned just right with salt and pepper. Each bite was a delight, especially when paired with the flavorful sauce. My sister opted for a ham sandwich, which was decent, but in my opinion nothing compared to the steak. Overall, while the steak could have benefited from a bit more resting time to let the juices settle, it was still a delicious and satisfying meal. After all, who can resist a perfectly cooked steak? During my time in Paris, I made it a mission to explore as many bakeries as possible. One particular bakery caught my attention with a line wrapping around the front door, so naturally I had to see what the fuss was all about. I ended up getting quite the chocolate feast, a chocolate eclair, a slice of chocolate flan, and a slice of chocolate cake. Yes, it was a chocolate overload, but who's complaining? First up was the chocolate flan. While it was a bit challenging to cut into, the taste made up for it, smooth, not overly rich or sweet, and it was a delightful treat. Next, the chocolate eclair. Slicing into it revealed a smooth interior filled with chocolate cream, but it was unexpectedly cold. However, I would still say it was pretty good. Lastly, the chocolate cake. Surprisingly not too sweet, probably due to the darker chocolate used, but once again, it was satisfying. Overall, this chocolate overload was a delightful indulgence, and definitely worth the wait in line. After a full day of walking, I decided to opt for a simple dinner in my hotel room. I stumbled upon this kimchi shin ramen, which I didn't even know existed. Perhaps it's a Europe exclusive item. Alongside that, I grabbed some chips. Now, you might wonder how I managed to get boiling water in a hotel room. Well, it's all thanks to this trusty coffee maker. Sure, it's not as efficient as a water boiler, but it gets the job done, albeit with a few extra button presses. Interesting, I discovered that Evian water in France isn't nearly as pricey as it is back home in the States. As for the kimchi ramen, it was a bit lackluster, barely tasted like kimchi. I preferred the original one. I also picked up a random beer in the store. Judging by the words on the can, I'm guessing it was some kind of blonde ale. Overall, it was a relaxing and satisfying meal after a whole day of walking. While I was in Paris, my goal was to try as many pastries as I could. This spot was the second bakery I went to. They had an assortment of pastries and I knew I was in for a treat. I tried this black sesame roll, which is apparently pretty popular currently, so I was very excited. Holding it, I felt the denseness and it was surprisingly sticky, so I guess there was some sort of sweet glaze on top. Biting into it, it was pretty good. It tasted like a toasted sweet glazed croissant. Next up was an eclair, but this eclair had a hazelnut chocolate filling and it was pretty good. I always thought eclairs were like a room temperature pastry, but with this being my second cold eclair, I guess I was wrong. Finally, I got an ordinary croissant. Thinking back from the first bakery I went to, I didn't get a croissant, so I knew I had to get it here. Overall, the black sesame was my favorite. While I was in Paris, I noticed a bunch of American-themed bars called Indiana. Naturally, I had to check out and see what American food was like in Paris. I started off with some drinks and nachos. The nachos looked promising with guacamole, sour cream, diced onions and tomatoes, and melted cheese. The cute pieces of chicken were a bit unusual, but overall they tasted like nachos you'll find at a local bar in the States. Next, I ordered some tacos. I was expecting some soft shell tacos, but they came out as hard shell Taco Bell style tacos. Oh well, I guess that really just adds to that American experience. Biting into them, they were nothing special. I've never been a fan of hard shell tacos and this didn't change my mind. I also had some onion rings that came with barbecue sauce. They're okay, but I wish the batter was more flavorful. Lastly, I had these bacon cheese fries, which were decent. Overall, Indiana provided a fun, nostalgic taste of American bar food, but nothing that blew me away. I was in Munich for one last day and I knew how to get some traditional German food before heading back to the States. I grabbed myself a refreshing Pilsner and ordered a sausage, mashed potato, and bread platter. The first one I tried was a bit herby, dare I say it was similar to an American breakfast sausage, but overall it was good. I even made myself a little sandwich with some mashed potato, the sausage, and mustard. There was also sauerkraut, which I swear tastes super similar to kimchi. Both are fermented products, so I guess that makes sense, but even without the red chili flakes, they taste pretty similar. Anyways, the second sausage was a bit meatier, which I preferred much more. It had a richer flavor and a more satisfying texture. Overall, I do love a good sausage. This meal was a perfect way to cap off my time in Munich. Traditional German food, a cold beer, and a bustling atmosphere of Munich made for a memorable last day in Europe. And with that, my month-long trip in Europe has come to an end. The last meal I had was in Germany at the shipping container restaurant near the airport. I started with a nice, refreshing cold beer and ordered one of my favorite dishes that I've become a huge fan of, currywurst. Something about a curry barbecue sauce on top of a sausage served with fries screams comfort food. By this point, I had currywurst at like 5 different locations, and although they were a bit different from one another, they all tasted great. It's probably a testament to how fantastic this dish is. My mom got a schnitzel with some mushroom cream sauce on top, and that was great as well. Nice and crunchy and thin, although I gotta say I like the Japanese tonkatsu version better. Schnitzels tend to be too thin. My sister got tikka masala, and that was good as well. Buttery, tender, and rich in flavor. But yeah, I'm gonna miss currywurst and German beer, but hopefully I can come back to Europe once again. During my recent work trip to Boston, you know I had to expense some meals and put it on the company card. So even though I'm not much of a breakfast person, I couldn't resist checking out a local cafe. I opted for the breakfast combo, which included 2 eggs, breakfast potatoes, and bacon. Let me tell you, those breakfast potatoes were a real highlight. Nicely seasoned and incredibly crispy. They were bursting with flavor and far from soggy. The eggs were cooked to perfection exactly as I ordered them, over easy. The yolks were delightfully runny, and the eggs themselves were well seasoned, far from bland. As for the bacon, it was your standard streaky variety, nothing particularly remarkable there. But the best part? Mopping up the yolk with those delicious breakfast potatoes and savoring every bite. It was a simple yet satisfying start to the day. During my time in Boston, I decided to splurge a bit and indulge in a luxurious breakfast at an upscale bakery. I opted for the croissant stuffed with ham, eggs, and a chai cream sauce on top, and let me tell you, it was worth every penny of the $17 price tag. Plus, it's on the company card, so why not? The croissant itself was substantial with a generous amount of ham that wasn't too salty. The cream sauce added a delightful richness reminiscent of the gravy you would find on a chicken fried steak, and then there were the eggs, cooked to perfection with a beautifully popped yolk that added another layer of decadence to the dish. Sure, $17 might seem steep for a breakfast croissant, but considering the quality and the quantity of the ingredients, it was well worth it for this truly indulgent meal. My time in Boston was quite enjoyable. The city has a lot to offer, and being along the coast was pretty cool. For my final meal, I decided to try a burger bar at the airport. My standard for success, simply being better than McDonald's as it is with all airport restaurants. I opted for the signature burger loaded with bacon and mushrooms. The patty was a hefty 2 inches thick and the cheese was perfectly melted. Taking the first bite, I was pleasantly surprised as it was pretty darn good. The fries, while not exceptional, were decent. However, this meal set me back $26, which is probably double what I would pay at McDonald's. Was it worth twice the price? Probably not, but it definitely surpassed the fast food chain in taste.